Good morning. It is interesting to see that in the day when we meet each other, we greet each other by saying good morning, good afternoon. Nobody says bad morning, bad afternoon. And also, if you look at your name, everybody tries to get a good name. There's nobody who has a bad name called ghost or evil force or things like that. So all this indicates, as we were discussing yesterday, that we long to have reliable, long-lasting peace and happiness, and we wish to shun all kinds of difficulties and problems. That is our inborn nature. So when every time when you say good morning, you need to remember the fact that the morning will not become good by itself simply by saying good morning. You have to make the morning good by developing certain positive attitudes, emotions. Then the morning will be good. Then the evening will be good. And in fact, the whole life will be good. So we need to say good life. When Atisha, the famous Indian teacher, he used to greet other people by saying, have you had a good mind? Instead of saying good morning, when he meets somebody, he used to say, have you had a good mind? So that is the crux of the matter. If you have a good mind, a positive mind, then wherever you go, you will be happy, you will be at peace. If you don't have a good mind, if you have a negative state of mind, always complaining, always highlighting the faults of others, then you can never be happy. So it's important to highlight the good things that you have, the potentials that you have. Whenever I give a talk, I tell people that you need to develop positive outlook and appreciate the things, good things that you have, rather than focusing on your limitations. If you focus on your potential, in fact, when I tell people to focus on their good qualities, their positive emotions, then they say, Geshe, what good things do I have? And I say, of course, many. You are a human being, number one. You are not a cow, not a dog. That itself is a big thing to meditate and contemplate and appreciate. Sometimes some people ask me, Geshe, teach me meditation. I provoke them by saying, you meditate this whole morning until lunch, you meditate that you are a cow and live exactly like a cow. See where you are going to get your breakfast. See where you are going to sleep, That's meditation. And then compare with that kind of experience through meditation. You can then compare your life as a human life with the life of an animal. Then you will be so happy. Oh my goodness, I am so lucky. If today I am a cow or a dog, what can I do then? You see? So it's a perspective, it's a change of perspective that can really make you happy. So you are a human being. Then among human beings, how many are there that has all the sense faculties intact? How many are there? You see, we take it for granted. We never appreciate the good things that you have. How many people are there who have all their sense faculties intact? You see, we have these two beautiful eyes, but we never appreciate and don't properly use these two beautiful eyes. Similarly, your two nice hands, legs, and other faculties of your body. You have everything intact. Imagine if you lose one of your eye or one of your leg. Imagine then. At that point, then you will wish, how nice if I have both the legs. How nice if I have both the hands. Now you have everything. So it's important to appreciate that I can do so many things. I have everything intact. Then in the case of many of us, we are lucky, we are right now living in a country where there is freedom. We are not living in a war zone area. See? So we have every freedom. So it is a great wastage not to realize these potentials and waste these potentials. It's a great, great wastage. So you can inspire yourself and feel happy that I can do, I'm a human being. Not only you can do, but you should do right now. And that is what the first verse was actually saying, that as oneself and others are similar in disliking suffering and fear, why is it that you take care of yourself and not others? This verse is actually talking about two important practices that is taught in Buddhism. The two things that is taught in Buddhism is cultivation of wisdom and cultivation of compassion, which in common language means that you should be a good person with good wisdom, means good knowledge, and compassion means good heart. You should be a person with good heart and good knowledge. So that's what this verse is talking about. He's challenging you by saying that since now you are not a cow, not a dog, you are an intelligent human being, therefore you should use your wisdom and analyze why I am taking care about myself and not others, although we are same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So in this way you use your wisdom and analyze this fact. And when you use your wisdom and analyze this fact, then you will not find any reason why you just take care of yourself and not others. Because others are exactly like you, wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. You do not want suffering because suffering is distasteful. It gives you a lot of problems. So similarly, sufferings of others are also bad. Pain is pain, suffering is suffering. Whether it's your suffering or other suffering, your pain or other pain, pain is pain. Suffering is suffering. So therefore it is important to understand this fact and take care of others. And not only that, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says, that not only you are similar like others, wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, but the difference is when you talk about yourself, however important you are just one person. But others are countless, number one. Number two, it is also the fact and the truth that others are connected to you. Your peace and your happiness, your well-being are directly or indirectly related to others. Whether it is your name, fame, accumulation of wealth, prosperity, all this has to come in relation to other people. It cannot happen in vacuum. You see? And even when we talk about undertaking all these great Buddhist practices, developing compassion, developing love, developing wisdom, we can do all this in relation to other people. I cannot develop compassion by focusing on this table. I cannot develop loving kindness focusing on this building, you see. I develop compassion in respect to other sentient beings. So therefore you use that wisdom and then realize the fact that you are exactly like others. And others are exactly like yourself, wanting happiness, not wanting suffering, still full of suffering. That's the fact. We are not only same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, but just like yourself, others also experience immense suffering, immense problem. I underlined this fact yesterday by saying that if you look at people running everywhere, they are running primarily for happiness, which means they are experiencing problem, they are experiencing suffering, be it physical, be it mental, and they wish to get rid of these sufferings and problems and want to gain happiness. And it is for the pursuit of this happiness that you find everybody running hither and thither. So therefore the second verse is, therefore now your commitment is that if you genuinely wish and desire to end suffering, not only of yourself, but suffering of all sentient beings, and you wish to achieve that ultimate happiness, not only for yourself, but for every other sentient being, the reason I've already explained to you, then you should stabilize yourself in faith, developing the faith. The root is faith. That means, faith means not just blind faith, but faith based on knowledge, understanding, reason, meaning that if you and all other sentient beings genuinely want happiness, do not want suffering, then you should be able to cultivate this faith, realizing that the way to overcome these sufferings and the way to achieve that long-lasting peace and happiness lies in the teachings of the Buddha. So cultivate that faith. Clear? That's the meaning. So here faith means many things. So in these two verses, what we are primarily talking about is, one, you need to recognize the preciousness of your human life. Because it is based on the fact that you have obtained this precious human life, you have this capacity to judge between what is right, what is wrong, what is your long-term happiness and peace. So appreciate the fact, as I started right in the beginning, appreciate the fact that you are a human being. Be happy with that. Be happy with that. Okay? So I'm not going to explain in detail. So you should appreciate the fact that you have obtained this precious human life. In fact, this human life is called precious human life, not because it has special physical strength or special physical agility. Like we cannot compete an elephant or a whale in terms of our physical strength. We don't also have the agility of a monkey or some other animals. And you can just use your common sense and see, like if you bring forth some of the gold, international Olympic gold medalist, like say somebody who has won several gold medals in swimming. So among the human beings, we say he's the best person in swimming and won many gold medals. But these things are done by fish very, very easily. They can do much more than they should get many gold medals. They live in the sea, see? And similarly, like agility, the monkey jumping from tree to tree, we cannot do that. So many things in terms of the physical dexterity or agility, flexibility. Animals can do much better than us. So we should not, while I'm not against showing human expertise, physical expertise in different areas, but what I'm saying is the human beings should show their real capacity, not in terms of physical agility or physical achievement. They should show their excellence in terms of their mental potential, their mental capacity. Because unlike many other animals, human beings are given with such a profound intelligence, the capacity to judge between what is right and what is wrong, which no other animals, no other species of birds and mammals have. Human beings have that. Now, in one sense, this is a great advantage. You have this great potential, but unless you realize this potential and use in the constructive way, human beings can be very dangerous. That's a really important point to be noted down. Now look at today's world situation. The awful destructions that's happening everywhere. The invention of destructive nuclear bombs and many other destructive weapons. These are creations of human mind. These are not created by even the ferocious animals like tiger, lion. They did not create these awful weapons. Human beings created it. So similarly, because of this great human intelligence, we have created so many things. But much of what we have created is as a result of not real proper intelligence in the form of wisdom, but they are created in the form of a result of a corrupted, in Buddhism we call it corrupted wisdom. When you misuse your intelligence in the wrong way, then you can create all these destructive things, and you can make your life and other people's life miserable and full of suffering. So human beings are really the key player in this world. So we have a huge responsibility. So unless we know how to properly transform the mind, we can be very, very destructive. But if you follow the right direction, the right teaching, the right morality and so forth, and use your intelligence in the right way, then human beings can also be a source of peace, not only for human beings, but for all living sentient beings. That's why in Buddhism, especially in Mahayana Buddhist teaching, there is so much talk about the need to cultivate Bodhichitta, the wish to bring happiness to all sentient beings. And human beings can do that. No other animals can do that. So therefore, yesterday also I said, we are lucky and fortunate that we have this opportunity to sit together and reflect on such a beautiful text, profound text. You see? Shantideva, I have translated, I think, 6-7 pages of his story. So in one of these days I'm going to make a copy and give it to you to read about the composer of this text. He has composed primarily 3 texts: Bodhicharya Avatara, the Bodhisattva way of life, which those of you who are interested must read text. It's available in the library. Must read text. Then he has this text, which actually is this one. What we are reading is the root text. And in the form of commentary, auto-commentary, Shantideva has wrote this one. And this one contains primarily quotations from various sutras, over 100 sutras. Some people say 115 sutras, whatever be the number. He has quoted profusely more than 100 sutras, the teachings of the Buddha himself, proving the fact that he is teaching in this text, that the Buddha taught this. So later on you can read those texts, those of you who can read it. Unfortunately, there is only one English translation available, which I read long time back, which is also unfortunately a horrible translation, so I would not recommend you to read that one. So anyway, for the time being, I think this short text should be enough, just to get the essential points. So out of these 3 texts, the text that he wrote, 3 texts, so some people say that he has written texts on Tantra also. I'm just searching for those texts because I have a wish to hopefully one day compile all these texts of Shantideva. So anyway, there are 3 texts that are very well known. That is Bodhisattva way of life, Bodhicharya Avatara, and the second is shikshasamuchaya, and third is Sutrasamuchaya, Compendium of Sutras, collections from sutras. So these 2 texts, shikshasamuchaya and Sutrasamuchaya, is said to have written by him earlier. Bodhicharya Avatara was written later. So therefore, when you read this Bodhicharya Avatara, you will find Shantideva mentioning that I have written this in my other 2 texts, Shikshasamuchaya and Sutrasamuchaya, so you should read those also. He says this in his Bodhicharya Avatara. So anyway, he was a really, really great teacher who was not only talking but practicing. And he was practicing so much that in his university, I think in Nalanda University, he was even given the nickname Busuk. Busuk, which means a person who does only 3 things. There is eating, defecating, going to the toilet, eating and sleeping. But then interestingly, it turned out that actually this word Busuk also is a way of life, very special way of life found in tantric practice, where the great practitioners, appear to be just doing these 3 things and nothing else, but in reality, the person is in deep meditation. A clear indication is that when his schoolmates. So Shantideva most of the time sleeping, going to the toilet and eating. Then the university students, they said, we must teach this fellow a lesson, otherwise he's not going to improve. So what they did was, as a way of punishing him, they said, okay, now you have to give a talk. So to tease him, it is said that they prepared a huge throne, very high throne, which has no ladders and stairs to climb on that throne. Anyway, when he was invited in that gathering, then Shantideva said, it is said that he did perform some miracle, that he stretched his hand and the hand became very long and put it in the throne and pressed the throne down, made it low. And then he sat on that throne and he said, shall I teach something that you already know or something that you do not know at all? That was the challenge he offered to the students or to the teachers or students there. Then again they made fun of him by saying, because you always do strange things, so this time also you may be able to give a strange teaching, so give a strange teaching which nobody gave. So they ridiculed him again. So then he gave this famous text, Bodhichitta, Bodhisattva way of life. And when he was teaching the wisdom section, there is a line called, when there is no thing or no none-thing, it's talking about emptiness. And then it is said that he just actually flew into the space. Gradually, he slowly he disappeared, but still people could hear his teaching. So in this way, he disappeared. Then, having tested the profundity of his teaching, everybody now went to search Shantideva. And they wanted to really get this text, the whole text that he has taught. Then later on, they were able to find him some other place. Then he said, okay, the text that I've been teaching is somewhere under the pillar or somewhere. So they discovered this text, Bodhisattva. So there are a lot of stories. I'll give you that written story to you for reading. So therefore, we were reading this second verse. Those who desire to end suffering and to achieve ultimate happiness should stabilize the root of faith. That means if you genuinely want happiness and do not want suffering, and similarly, if you genuinely want others their long-lasting peace and happiness, and they do not experience suffering, then you should develop faith in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Because it is by taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha that you can find a way which will really help you get the reliable, long-lasting peace and happiness and remove suffering. There's no other way. And I briefly touched about this yesterday. Whether your long-lasting peace and happiness will come from your parents, you all said no. From wealth, you said no. From any other sources, you said no. So therefore, in Buddhism, the first thing that we need to do is, as a Buddhist, the first demarcation or criteria, whether you're a Buddhist or not, is whether you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. If you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, then you're a Buddhist. If you're not taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, then in the true sense of the term, you're not a Buddhist, even if you claim that you are Buddhist. So it's very pertinent again to ask this question by saying, if I ask you the question, are you a Buddhist? You will all say, yes, I'm a Buddhist. What do you mean to be a Buddhist? If you answer this by saying, because my parents are Buddhist, that's the wrong answer. Because I came from a Buddhist country, wrong answer. So the demarcation, whether you are a Buddhist or not, is whether you take refuge to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. It's very important for you to understand. Now when we say, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, then first you need to understand this notion of taking refuge. Taking refuge, as is taught in Buddhism, is not something peculiar. This teaching is also in conformity with human nature. It's human nature that when we have a problem, when we have a difficulty, especially a difficulty which we are unable to solve, then we have to take refuge in someone else, seek their protection, seek their guidance, seek their help. It's in the human nature. So around 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock, when you're hungry, you take refuge in food, take refuge in lunch. When it's raining, you take refuge in umbrella. Long, long ago, when men lived in the cave, they are taking refuge in the cave. Okay? So that process of taking refuge in someone else, when you are unable to solve that problem yourself, is in the human nature. So true to that human nature, when we have this great issue of removing the sufferings and problems, and this great challenge of gaining long-lasting peace and happiness also, then you need to ask this question: how can I get that long-lasting peace and happiness? How can I shun those miseries and sufferings and problems? How can I do that? You cannot do that by relying on external facilities. So the only way you can do is transforming and changing your mind. And how would you transform your mind? How would you change your mind? It is not easy. It is not easy. There are people who say, after listening to talks and teachings, then they would say, oh, the crux of the Buddhist teaching is become a good person, to have a good mind. So why we should read all these complicated Buddhist philosophical texts? You see? Yes, it is true that the crux of Buddhist teaching is to be a good person with a good mind, but to make your mind good is not easy. That's the problem. Therefore, Buddha himself, he said, do not do anything that is bad or negative. Do everything that is positive. Completely transform your mind. This is my teaching. In 4 lines, in 1 verse, he gave the essence of his teaching by saying, do not do those things which are negative, which means those that harms yourself and harms others. Do those things, do perfectly well those things which are positive, that means which is good for you, for others. Now how would you do that? That's not easy. Therefore in the 3rd line he says, completely transform your mind. Now here he is giving a big homework. Completely change your mind, transform your mind. How would you transform your mind? In order to change your mind, transform your mind, you need to know how to transform it. What is the process of transforming the mind? So the transforming the mind primarily means getting rid of the negative emotions, cultivating the positive emotions. It is a revolutionary step. It's a revolutionary step. Hardly anybody is embarking on this path. We are all very good in dealing with external situations, circumstances, running hither and thither, so many things. And we also have a pretty good knowledge about even about atoms, or even about the brain and so forth these days. But when it comes to yourself, how much you know about yourself, we hardly know anything about ourselves. If you ask somebody, tell me about yourself, immediately they'll tell their name, or probably the country from which they come from. Apart from that, if I ask more question, who are you? From where you came from? How long you are going to live in this world? When you die, where are you going to go? No clue, no idea, nothing. We know nothing. And as I said earlier, we just run after the dictates of the 5 senses and leave this mind, which is really controlling us. We leave this mind completely untouched. So how can you heal yourself? How can you have a positive physical and mental health when you have no contact with yourself at all? You see, all the modern gadgets that you have, the mobile phone, the internet, all these are means to contact others, not yourself. You will not make a phone call to yourself. You will not send an email to yourself unless it is a document that you want to remember or something. But normally you don't use these modern medias to get connected to yourself. So that the real way to get connected to yourself is internal reflection. So therefore meditation is encouraged. Meditation means, so we'll do small meditations also. So meditation means The Tibetan meaning of this word meditation means to get habituated. Gom. Gom comes from komba. Komba, get habituated. So meditation means get habituated. Get habituated with what? Negative emotions? No, we don't need to get habituated with negative emotions because we are already very good in that. We are highly advanced meditators in negative emotions. So meditation itself is nothing holy, nothing sacred. It's only a technique. So therefore, as Tsongkhapa says in his great stages of the path, Lamrim Chemo, you are controlled by your mind. Your mind is predominantly controlled by negative emotions. So therefore meditation means to realize the fact that your mind is predominantly controlled by negative emotions and therefore you are experiencing sufferings and troubles. Therefore now I must change my habit and make my mind habituated with positive emotions. That's called meditation. Meditation is not sitting in a corner in a cross-legged position, not moving. That's not the real meditation. Unfortunately, today, many people, meditation has become a household term. The term meditation is hitting headlines of Newsweek, New York Times, and so forth. It's very popular, especially in five-star hotels and resorts now. It is being commercialized. And people work in the whole day, and then in the evening they go to a Buddhist center, and then sit there, half sleeping, and then they say, after their sleeping or meditation is over, then they say, wow, the meditation is so relaxing. Of course it was relaxing because you were not meditating, you were sleeping. You've been working the whole day, you were tired. Now you were sitting there, you were sleeping, so it was relaxing. That's not meditation. That's not meditation. So meditation means making your mind habituated with the positive emotions. The area in which you are not habituated, and distancing yourself from negative emotions. And that kind of meditation will bring genuine, long-lasting peace and happiness. So the purpose of meditation is to get rid of the negative emotions, especially the root cause of all the negative emotions, which is ignorance, misconception of the reality. So therefore, those of you who desire to end suffering and to achieve ultimate happiness should stabilize the root of faith. So develop this strong faith to all the teachings of the Buddha, especially to Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So that was my point. As a Buddhist, we should take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So why should you, as I said earlier, it's in the human nature that when you have a problem, you take refuge in someone else. Now in this case, when we say Buddhists take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, so naturally the question arises, what is the problem? If you are taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, you must be having a problem. So what is your problem? What is your difficulty? Why you take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha? To get food? No. To get clothes? No. To get any other mundane facilities? No. So what is your problem? Mental problem. Problems of afflictive emotions, negative emotions. So how can these three, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, help you in removing these negative emotions? So in this you need to understand, number one, in Buddhism we have only three refuges, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So you can ask a question by saying, why we can't have many more so that we feel more supported and protected? Or why can not be less, just one object of refuge? It will be simpler and more convenient. Why just three? Neither one nor many. Why three? That question arises. Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, three. Three, we take refuge in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. This can be explained with an example. Like when you are physically sick, physically ill, again you need to take refuge. To whom? A doctor, physician. And then, is physician alone enough? The doctor and physician may be a great expert, but if he doesn't give you medicine, you cannot be cured. So you need medicine. Now if you are not just physically a little bit sick, but terribly sick, then not only you need a good doctor and good medicine, you also need somebody to look after you. Your parents, your relatives, your nurse, and so forth. So, when you are physically very, very ill, you need three objects of refuge: a physician, medicine, and somebody who looks after you, nurse or assistant, whatever you want to call it. Three. So these three are the must when you are physically very, very sick. So similarly, mentally we are very sick. We may not want to hear this. I mean, not sick in the ordinary sense, but in a different sense. So mentally we are sick. Sick with what? Negative emotions. Anger is sickness. And what is the definition of sickness? When you suffer, when you have pain, then you say, I'm suffering from this and that disease. Similarly, when you have anger, as I told you yesterday, there's nobody who says, I was very angry, so I enjoyed the day. So you are suffering. Likewise, when you develop very strong negative emotion towards somebody, any kind of negative emotion, you suffer. When you develop very strong attachment to somebody, you are suffering. You lose your power, you get destabilized. Your mind gets obsessed with that object. Part of your mind goes to that object. When part of your mind goes to that object, you are destabilized. You become weak. You see? Jealousy. Somebody is rich or something, you feel uncomfortable, you are suffering, pain. So these are sicknesses. So in order to, and this is not a small sickness, but a big sickness, a chronic illness. This mental sickness from negative emotions, we have been suffering for many, many lives. We are habituated with this. We are strongly habituated with these negative emotions. Therefore, it is so difficult for us to remove these negative emotions. Because to do away with some of these negative emotions, for us it looks like we are doing away with the part of ourselves. Oh, it's my anger, so I should stay with me. It's my attachment, should stay with me. And in fact, His Holiness the Dalai Lama gives a wonderful example by saying that ordinary people think that it is these negative emotions which makes our life colorful. You watch any movie, the main theme in that movie is either violence or sex. So that is how ordinary people see things, you see. And if sex is not there, if violence is not there, then the movie has no real theme. And likewise, these movies are a reflection of your actual life. So in your actual life also you think, if these things are not there, then life is colorless. You see? But one thing that you need to really understand is, it may look a little bit colorful, but with this, when you develop this negative emotions like attachment and hatred and anger and so forth, there will be too much ups and downs in your life. Sex or violence, whatever. Too much ups and downs in your life. And too much ups and downs in your life is not good for your health. Ups and downs in your life means too much fluctuations. It's not good for your life. So therefore, what is taught in Buddhism is a way of life which may not be so colorful in the ordinary parlance, but you will be able to lead a life which is more or less turbulent-free. Turbulent-free. And we have all experienced traveling in an aeroplane, you see. Do you like turbulence or turbulent-free ride? In your flight, when there is no turbulence, you all enjoy, you see. When there is turbulence, you all feel frightened. And even with those kind of experiences, you can learn a lot. Because when you actually experience that turbulence in life, in your flight, whatever, then that makes you think, what's the meaning of human life? How can I get that genuine, long-lasting peace and happiness? I've seen this many times. Like when you are flying, when you just get into the aircraft, let us say nobody knows anybody. So at the most we can, with a grin, we can greet. Hi. Not more than that. Okay, you are somebody, I'm somebody, I'll take my seat, you take your seat. So everybody thinks I'm somebody, you are somebody, so why the hell we need to get connected, you see? That's why here he's saying get connected. Realize the fact that we are all connected. But normally you don't understand that. But as and when in the mid-air, when there is a turbulence, interesting, I've seen this, you will see this. As soon as in the mid-air, when there is a big turbulence, immediately you will look at other people and start smiling. I've seen this. When there is a big tragedy, people come together. You see? So that clearly shows when there is a big tragedy, big problem, the only way to solve the problem is coming together, helping each other. You see? But we forget this. If we look at our own life, after birth, for several years, when you were a helpless child, you're completely dependent on others' love, others' compassion. Then at the end of your life, when you're old, again you're completely dependent on others' love and compassion. In those periods of your life, the one thing that you value most is others' help, others' affection, others' love. Not so much about money. To a dying person, if you talk about money, he may not care much about that, whether he's a believer or not believer. But because he's realizing that it is of not much importance to me, but he would still expect somebody's genuine care and affection and love. So this is the case, how we started our life and how we are going to end our life. But in between, when we are adult and when we are young and energetic and able to do something, then we forget all these things. Why is there need to do Dharma practice? All my peace and happiness will come from the external material facilities. That's the problem. So therefore Buddha is constantly telling us that if you genuinely want long-lasting peace and happiness, then you better, before it is too late, you better pay attention to these basic realities. And it is better that you really catch hold of those real causes and factors for peace and happiness. Okay? So those who desire to end suffering and to achieve ultimate happiness should stabilize the root of faith. So have faith, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So Buddha, so we need these three objects of refuge when we are mentally sick. So now who is Buddha? You need to read more about this. Now those of you who can read in Tibetan, there are so many texts in Tibetan, read that. The description, Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Those of you who can read in English, there are so many texts luckily available, especially the 3 volumes of Lamrim Chemo, they are available now. So you can read that. So it's not just listening to somebody, but you need to do your homework, read that. Okay? So Buddha is like a physician who will diagnose your mental illnesses. And that's exactly what he does. Anger is not good for your health, get rid of it. Compassion is good for your health, cultivate it. That is what he's teaching. Like a great doctor. So he's teaching the Dharma. It's like the medicine. So unless, if you take the medicine, you cannot cure yourself. Similarly, unless you practice the Dharma, unless you practice his teaching, there is no way you can cure yourself. Exactly like. In fact, the word Dharma is a Sanskrit word. The Tibetan word for Dharma is Chu. Chu Cheva. Chu. Chu, which means change, which means transform your attitude from negative to the positive. If you do that, then you are doing Chu, you are doing Dharma. If you don't do that, doesn't matter, you go around the temple so many times, do 100,000 prostration, whatever. It's not, equal to nothing, of course. but it's not going to change you much. It's not going to change you much. So therefore, what you really need to do in terms of Dharma practice is change your attitude from the negative to the positive. That's the crux of the Buddha's teaching. Okay, Dharma. And so that's the meaning of the Tibetan word chu. The Sanskrit word dharma means to catch somebody from falling down. The Sanskrit word dharma comes from the word dwara, which means to catch hold of somebody from falling down. That also basically says the same thing, because if you undertake this practice of cultivating positive emotions and removing the negative emotions, it will help yourself from falling down. It will catch hold of you from falling down. For example, if you kill somebody, you are falling down. You will get into trouble. You will be imprisoned. So by doing Dharma practice, you will not engage in those negative activities of killing and stealing and so forth. So therefore, you will never fall. Dharma. Then Sangha. Sangha means communion, to keep in touch with somebody. Sangha, community. So that means to keep in touch with good people, people who engage in Dharma practice, people who talk good things, as is underlined in the Bodhisattva, Thogme Zangbo's 37 Bodhisattva practices, where he makes a distinction between bad friend and good friend. And in the terms of bad friend, he says, when you associate with somebody, if your three poisons, attachment, anger, ignorance, increases, multiplies, and if your positive emotions decreases, then it is a clear indication that you are going with a bad friend. In whose association, if the negative emotions increase, become stronger, for example, you don't drink before, but you start, after going with this person, you start drinking, you start smoking, you start killing other people or whatever, and then it's clear that you are going with the wrong person. That person may, to you, appear very nice. He may be spending a lot of money for you, on your behalf, saying, oh, this is the only life, let us enjoy life, don't worry about money, I'll look after all the expenses, they'll come with very nice expressions. But in reality, if he is dragging you down with him towards negative ways of life, then that friend is called negative friend, evil friend. So it's important not to go with such a person, such a friend. Then in the case of the positive or good friend, by relying on somebody, if your faults, if your bad behaviors cease, and your positive qualities increase like a waxing moon, and then such a person is your spiritual friend. And regard that spiritual friend as more important than your life. And always, especially in our case, when we are ordinary, when we are fallible, when we are not very strong, it is important to go with the good people, good friends. That's why it is important. Go to attend His Holiness teaching or somebody's good teaching. Read good text. Then it will always inspire you. It will create an atmosphere. Otherwise, it's very easy to forget these things. It's very easy to read a book which is engrossing, may not have any substance. That's why today there's so many people read, fictional books. Because you just want to pass time, I mean, it's one thing that if you're improving your language and other things, I mean, there are good things also, but if you really want to get rid of these negative emotions, then spend more time with these books, even if some of these books looks difficult to understand. But if you spend a little more time, ask questions, then once you understand the meaning, you will enjoy so much. The peace and happiness that you cultivate in this process is going to be your most reliable, long-lasting friend. So therefore, those who desire to end suffering and to achieve ultimate happiness should stabilize the root of faith. Have faith in the teaching. have faith in the Buddha. And that faith can be cultivated by spending some time reading about it. Not just blind faith. Okay? And then stabilize the mind of enlightenment. So basically what he is saying in another way, what this text is going to teach is three things. How to cultivate bodhicitta. Okay? Then how to practice the precepts of a bodhisattva. So in terms of cultivating bodhicitta, first you need to cultivate compassion. You can cultivate compassion only by seeing the sufferings of others, which we have already discussed. That others have similar suffering like yourself, therefore develop compassion. That in one way, that's what he is saying. Then develop faith in the teachings of the Mahayana, or the three objects of refuge. And then you should stabilize the mind of enlightenment, means then you should cultivate, because now you have developed a strong faith, you have developed compassion, you have seen the importance of cultivating such a bodhicitta. So therefore now you should stabilize the mind of enlightenment. With this kind of systematic process of cultivation of bodhicitta, then if you develop this mind of bodhicitta, it will be stable. Now developing the mind, when we talk about developing the bodhicitta, first you need to know Changchub Gisem, bodhicitta, mind to enlightenment. Mind to enlightenment. Which basically means, mind to enlightenment or bodhicitta means, it is a mind aspiring to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. That's the definition. Bodhicitta is mind, which says, how nice if I'm able to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Because a bodhisattva is somebody who always thinks about how to benefit others. He is dedicated, as we will read in this text, he has dedicated his life, his wealth, his good deeds to the well-being of others. Because a bodhisattva has seen clearly that the only way to bring about long-lasting solution to the multifaceted problems that sentient beings are encountering is to become a Buddha, to completely get rid of afflictive emotions and their seeds and their imprints. When you become a Buddha, then you can really help others, not otherwise. When you become a Buddha, then you have omniscience, then you have clairvoyance, then you have precognition. Then you will be able to exactly know what she needs today, what she will need after 10 years, what she will need for many lives to come, what was her past karmic formulations or formations. So therefore, by seeing the various mental capacities and dispositions, he will be able to give a teaching which is suitable to that practitioner, to that follower. So therefore, if you read the Buddha's teaching, you will find various levels of Buddha's teachings. Interpretative teaching and definitive teaching. Interpretative teaching means there are certain teachings of the Buddha which you cannot take it at its face value, because it has some deeper meaning. Because he has given that teaching to benefit some other people who will not be able to understand the deeper meaning at this point of the time. So he has to give that level of teaching. And then gradually he will lead that student to the definitive teaching. Just like, for example, when we go to the school, we start from kindergarten. And then slowly proceed from first class, second class, third class, and so forth. And then finally we'll do PhD. Okay? The aim of even that little child going into the kindergarten student is to also help him go to his PhD study. But you cannot teach right now the PhD subjects to that kindergarten going student. So similarly, Buddha also saw clearly among his followers, some are very intelligent, some are mediocre, some are not very clever. So accordingly he has to give different teachings. For example, there was this story of Ajat Shatru was a king, Ajat Shatru. who, because of his association with the bad friends, he killed his father. He killed his father. And then he sunk into remorse, having realized that patricide or killing father is a heinous crime, a great misdeed. So he was completely lost into depression, having realized that he has committed a big sin. Then some people suggested that the only person who can show you the path to get out of this bad deed is the Buddha. So he goes to the Buddha with great depression and sadness. He goes to the Buddha telling him that this is what I did, so I don't know how to come out of this problem, this sin. Then Buddha said, not to worry. Father and mother are to be killed. Buddha said, not to worry. Father and mother are to be killed. And because he was trusting the Buddha, he thought it should be okay. He came back to his senses, it is said. When he came back to his senses, he was able to come out of the depression. Then the Buddha said, look, when I said father and mother are to be killed, I am not talking about your physical father and mother, but I am talking about ignorance and negative karma, which, like parents, produces all other negative emotions. So you need to destroy ignorance. You need to destroy the contaminated karma. Then you can purify all your wrongdoings, negative actions. So it's a very skillful way, very skillful way. So therefore, should stabilize the root of faith and then stabilize the mind. So we were talking about cultivating that mind, wishing to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Because if you become Buddha, that's my point, if you become Buddha, if you become completely enlightened, then you can really help others in the true sense of the term, not otherwise. Despite our good intentions, sometimes in the guise of helping others, we may be harming them, you see, because we are not as skillful enough as the Buddhas. Right? So I was explaining the meaning of Bodhichitta. Bodhichitta is mind, wishing, how nice if I become the Buddha to benefit all other sentient beings. So Bodhichitta is a mind with two aspirations. One, the aspiration to become a Buddha. Second, the aspiration to help others. His very purpose of becoming a Buddha is not for his egoistic, fulfillment, but to benefit other sentient beings. So there are two purposes with this mind, Bodhichitta. So just like, now Bodhichitta is also of two kinds. Aspirational Bodhichitta and engaging Bodhichitta. Aspirational Bodhichitta means Bodhichitta only at the level of aspiration, only at the level of prayer, only at the level of mental motivation. It's just like your wish to go to Meghlotganj. You are not going to Meghlotganj simply thinking, okay, if Geshe Lhakdor soon stops his talking, I will go to Meghlotganj. So that is aspiration, but you are not moving right now. So that aspiration is also good in the sense that will inspire you to slowly get up and go. But that aspiration alone is not enough to make you reach Meghlotganj. So similarly, aspirational bodhicitta means, as I've explained earlier, is a mind which says, how nice if I'm able to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. That's aspiration. That is wonderful. That is good. But that aspiration, motivation alone is not enough unless you do the work. Simply sitting, how nice if all sentient beings becomes Buddha, it's good. But unless I actually do something for the sentient beings, then that aspiration, that motivation is not enough. So your motivation, aspirational bodhicitta, should be so strong that it will make you get up, go and do things for others. And that's why I always tell people that you can see how strong is your compassion, how strong is your bodhicitta. That's why we need practice. For example, in the case of compassion, the definition of compassion is how nice if all sentient beings are without suffering. And that definition you can learn right now. And you can also appreciate, yes, it's a great mind. But then you need to ask the second question, yes, this is a great mind, but do I have this mind? Do I have this mind? Right now I'm just repeating the definition, but the point is, do I have this mind? If I don't have, how can I have it? So now here you need to do a lot of homework. So it's not just repeating a definition, you're not just saying it, but you need to meditate and reflect. When you say, how nice if all sentient beings are without suffering, you are actually saying, I'm concerned when I see other people are suffering. So now you have to honestly ask this question to yourself, are you really concerned when others are suffering? Just like yourself, when you suffer, you are concerned, of course. When you get a headache, oh, I must go to hospital. When somebody is having a headache, do you experience the same experience that you get? You don't get that. And you don't also have much, for example, if you are somebody who never had a headache, you also don't have personal experience. So therefore, in order to develop this genuine concern towards other people's suffering, you should have a very good understanding of how you are afflicted by these negative emotions. So therefore, you need to sit down. That's time for meditation now. You need to sit down and there and think based on, not just on the teaching, but based on your life's experience. Remember those days when you were angry. Recreate the scene that you played on that day. Did you really enjoy that anger? What did you do? Remember those things. We are now not talking about other people, your own personal experience. Remember those days when you had developed a strong grasping or craving or attachment. What did you do? Did you really enjoy the day? Or did it give you long-lasting satisfaction? Reliable peace and happiness? Unperturbed happiness? Did you get those things? Just replay the scene. Then you will hopefully be able to understand, yes, I had some kind of superficial satisfaction, but not genuine long-lasting peace and happiness. In fact, it brought many difficulties and problems. Once you see that, then you will be probably, hopefully, you have to think about this again and again. Then hopefully you will be able to get some kind of understanding that is not the right way. Then by recollecting how much you suffered on such and such occasion, if you remember, for example, the death of one of your beloved brother, sister, husband, wife, whatever, remember those, how much you suffered. Similarly, when you see somebody experience the similar thing, you can feel the pain, you see. So that is the thing. That's the thing. And then especially if you think in a deeper sense, how we are all connected, how your mind makes a huge difference in terms of sharing your happiness to others and sharing their experience, suffering. You can gradually bring about that transformation within yourself. And Shantideva very convincingly says this in his Bodhisattva way of life, in a form of dialogue. For example, as we discussed earlier, when we say I want, just like I want happiness, others also want happiness. Just as I do not want suffering, others do not want suffering. Then you might try to refute this by saying, yes, that is true, but he will take care of himself, I will take care of myself. It's none of my business to look after themselves. Then Shantideva said, no, that is wrong. Because when you think in this way, it's a misconception, because you are seeing that others are not at all connected with you. But if you think carefully, they are very much connected to you, number one. Number two, if your mind starts getting habituated thinking about others as your relatives, as your friends, in Buddhism we call it friend sentient beings, mother sentient beings. If you make yourself mind habituated with this, then others will become very close to your mind. Like for example, your so-called brother and sister. They were not necessarily your brother, sister from beginningless time. You give a designation that this is my brother, this is my sister. Now you become so fond of that person. And in fact, there is a joke here. After the birth of the child looks at the mother and says, "Have we met before?" "Have we met before?" The mother says, "No." The child says, "Then how come you are taking so much care about myself?" This is true, you see. It's true. It's all your mental imputation, designation, how you think. And then more convincingly, Shantideva says, okay, if you think, because the others, you cannot develop that genuine same love and same affection that you have to yourself, you are thinking in this way. Then Shantideva says, then in that case, better you look carefully at your body. This body which you are taking so much care about right now, from where this body came from? Was it your body right from the beginning? It came from your parents. It was a part of parents' body. The egg and the ovum come from the parent. But you give the designation. You decided to call it yourself as your body, my body, my body. So now today you are able to take care of it, you see. So similarly, if you make your mind habituated with this ways of thinking, you can feel others also like yourself. So this is how you can, and the end purpose is to bring that long-term happiness and peace for yourself and others. And then stabilize the mind. So the first mind is aspirational bodhicitta. The second mind is called engaging bodhicitta. It's wonderful to have that aspiration to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, but if you don't engage, if you don't practice, then that will not become effective. So therefore, engaging bodhicitta means now you have to live the life of a bodhisattva. Do the practice of the 6 perfections, engage with society, engage with sentient beings, cultivate the 6 perfections or 10 perfections, and so on. So that's called engaging bodhicitta, which you can do by receiving a bodhisattva vow. You take a vow, and then you make a commitment saying, okay, I will live the life of bodhisattva and engage in the practice of giving, observing morality, observing patience, making effort, engaging in concentration, cultivation of wisdom, and so forth. So that is called engaging bodhicitta. And then stabilize the mind of enlightenment. Having cultivated the habit of investigating themselves, an individual should cultivate faith in the Mahayana teaching, as this is the source of such practices. Having cultivated faith in the Mahayana, bodhicitta should be cultivated, because bodhicitta is the gateway to the Mahayana and the means of cultivating merit. So there are 3 gateways. The gateway to Mahayana practice is bodhicitta. The gateway to become a Buddhist is taking refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. There are 3 gateways you need to enter. First, you enter the gate of taking refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. You enter that gate, you become a Buddhist. And then second, you cultivate bodhicitta, you enter the gate of Mahayana. And then third, you receive tantric initiation, you enter the gate of tantric practice. So you need to systematically enter these 3 gates. So bodhicitta is the gateway to the Mahayana and the means of accumulating merit. Details of bodhisattva vows come from the Mahayana. Here the essential points should be known, which will prevent our downfall. So if you have the time, then you should read in detail the bodhisattva vows, which is taught in many of the Mahayana sutras. As I said already in this text, Shantideva has quoted more than 100 sutras from the Buddha, so you need to read those details. But here, the essential points should be known, because many of us don't have the time to read all those details because of language barrier, because of not able to get the text and so on. But in that case, you should at least know the essential points so that it will prevent you from committing downfall or breaking the Bodhisattva vows. So what are the essential points? Let us read the commentary. In the Mahayana texts, we find a detailed explanation of the different types of the bodhicitta, which I've already explained. Aspirational bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. This text is explained how an ordinary person, regardless of whether they are a male or female, in terms of cultivating bodhicitta, there is no differences in sex, male or female, can cultivate the bodhisattva vows. This text is also explained the procedure for receiving the vows. You can receive the bodhisattva vows from a living teacher. Like when His Holiness gives the teaching, he normally gives the bodhisattva vows. And also another good thing with this bodhisattva vows is you can receive this vow and cultivate the bodhicitta in front of a holy statue also. So this text is also explained the procedure for receiving the vows, how to restore broken vows. You make a vow, you take a vow, and later on, unfortunately, because of situation, if you break the vows, then what is the process? How can you restore the broken vows? All these are explained in the Mahayana texts. In spite of the fact that the practices of Bodhisattva have been taught extensively, it will be difficult for an ordinary, weak-minded person such as myself to understand and cultivate the Bodhisattva vows. So how is it possible for such a person to achieve enlightenment? Because you might get discouraged by saying, I'm a weak-minded person, I'm an ordinary person, I don't have much access to the Buddha's teaching. You see, in our case, when it comes to doing something good, we always, are very fond of making excuses, which actually shows we are not very interested. You see, one question that comes up very often is people say that these teachings are so good, but in the West we are so busy, we have no time. People come up with these excuses, which actually shows they are not interested, to be honest. Because if you have interest, you can always find time. Just like a football player, just like a musician, they never say that I'm so busy that I have no time for football or music. They always find some time because they are genuinely interested. So how is it possible for such a person to achieve enlightenment? So therefore, again in many of these sutras, the Buddha says, do not get discouraged. Do not get discouraged. Whether you are man or woman, you can cultivate bodhicitta. Even if you're an ordinary person, you can cultivate bodhicitta. So one might become discouraged. So it is important to know the essential points which will protect you from transgressing the vows. So what are the essential points which we will read in the next verse? But when he says here the essential points should be known, which will prevent our downfall. Here one thing that you need to know is whatever may come, I will try my best not to displease others. That's the essential point. And throughout my life, I will make sure that I will make others happy and not create sufferings and problems. So whatever activities you are doing, you should be careful that by doing this, am I creating some displeasure to some other people, unhappiness and misery to some other people or not? That is the yardstick of undertaking bodhisattva practice. Because as we have discussed already, the one thing that the bodhisattvas focus is how can I directly or indirectly help other sentient beings, make them happy, not temporarily, but get long-lasting peace and happiness. So that is the thing. Always be careful and considerate towards the needs of others. So that is the essential point. Okay? But if you want to read a little bit more, then the essential points are to give my body means your body, speech and mind. Body means your life. Body means your life, your body, speech and mind. You use your speech, you use your body, you use your mind in the service of others. And your resources. that you have accumulated in the right way, not through corruption, not through exploitation, the wealth that you have earned in the right way, and the good deeds that have cultivated in the 3 times, not only in this life but in the past, this life, and in the future lives. I will dedicate these 3 things to all sentient beings and to protect them and to develop them. So as I explained earlier, this text talks about the 12-fold practice. 12-fold practice means here we have the 3: body, your life, your resources, and your good deeds. So each of these 3 should be practiced in 4-fold process of practice. You offer your body, your life in the service of others. You protect it because you are going to offer it. If you don't protect it, there's nothing to offer. And you purify it and you multiply it. Similarly with the resources. You give your resources, protect it, purify it, increase it. Similarly with your good deeds. You give it to others, you offer it to others, you protect it, you purify it, increase. So that is called 12-fold practice. Clear? So we are going to read this one after another. So here is a summary of Bodhisattva vows. Because the practices of a Bodhisattva are included within the practice of the 6 perfections, which are fulfilled here through the 12 practices. I've already explained. 12 practices, clear? Of generosity, protection, purification, development. So generosity means giving, give your body, protect your body, purify your body, develop your body. Give your resources, protect your resources, purify your resources, develop your resources. Give your good deeds, protect your good deeds, purify your good deeds, develop your good deeds. That's called the 12 practices. Clear? Now in the case of giving, generosity, which is the first of the 6 perfections, giving, the 3 practices of generosity are to give our body, resources, good deeds, which I've already explained. This contains the practice of giving. Out of the 6 perfections, this is the practice of giving. Now giving, if I explain a little bit about this, giving. When it comes to the practice of giving, in Buddhist texts it talks about 3 types of giving. First is giving material wealth. When we talk about practice of charity, when we talk about practice of giving, normally we understand it as a material giving, which we normally understand. So that is one form of giving. The second kind of giving is giving fearlessness. Right in the beginning we discussed the point that nobody wants fear. Realizing that if you see somebody facing threat of his or her life, save their life. Save their life. If a small helpless insect is drowning, save their life. Protect them. So that is called giving fearlessness. So it's not material giving, but that person had fear before. Now you had given him a way of life where he is able to remove that fear. The third kind of giving is called giving Dharma teaching. So Dharma teaching means not just sitting on a throne and giving teaching, but it means giving good advices to other people to improve their education. Even, I would say, even teaching skills, even teaching English, even teaching mathematics. To some extent, I think this can also be included in the kind of giving teaching. But of course, the real giving of Dharma is giving the teaching which will help them remove the negative emotions. So it's so interesting to see these different forms of giving, you see. So it's not just money. When you talk about giving, it's not just giving money. It's giving fearlessness, it's giving advices and teachings. Then it's important, again you can read this in the Lamrim Chemo, then when you give, even in terms of material giving, you need to know to whom to give, what to give, when to give, when not to give. Now giving, material giving, for example, because of your understanding about the importance of giving, if you give poison, You are giving, yes. If you give destructive weapons, you are giving, but that is not counted as genuine charity or genuine giving. So such gifts are not permitted, they are discouraged. Because therefore don't give those things which will destroy their life, destroy their happiness, destroy their well-being. So giving intoxicant drinks, these are not good. And also, it may be some other thing, medicine, but at that state of the time, if this medicine also is going to harm that person, then don't give. Usually giving medicine is encouraged, but the situation of that person is such, if he takes that medicine, it's going to harm him, then at that point don't give. But if it is a situation where even giving poison is useful, then give poison. So you need to know when to give, and then also how to give. Like for example, if there is a beggar begging something, and then you give a sweet like this, you just throw it, get lost. You're always harassing me, always begging. Just take this and get lost. That's not proper giving, you see. Not proper giving. So give with respect, gently with a smile. Because this beggar looks very helpless and very mean or dirty, whatever. But that person is giving you an opportunity to accumulate positive karma for you. He looks very wretched, very mean, very little, very ordinary. But if you think properly, that person is giving a wonderful opportunity for you to. He's a reminder. He's reminding you to do the practice of giving, you see. And that's why it is said that for the Bodhisattvas, the most beautiful music they hear is when a beggar comes and says, please give me something. When the Bodhisattva hears the beggar, please give me something, that's the most beautiful thing that the Bodhisattva hears. He feels so happy that here I have an opportunity to help him and also help myself. So therefore, if you read some of the life histories of the great Bodhisattvas, that, for example, Aryadeva, it is said that he took out his eye and put it on a slate or something, and then kneeled down and offered it to the one who was begging for his eye with respect. Of course, these are not easy to practice right now, and in fact it is discouraged for ordinary people to do such a practice. It's risky and dangerous when our mind is not matured. But such is the way. Such is the way. And therefore, when you undertake this practice of giving, and then in some texts they say that we should not talk about the merits of giving, but the demerits of holding. There's another way of thinking, the demerits of holding. How much we have hoarded, how much we have accumulated, thinking that I will one day need this, I will one day need this, you see. And in more affluent countries, when I talk on these topics, I tell them, better you go back to your room and check how many pairs of shoes you have. In more affluent countries, people have 30, 40 pairs of shoes. One, because we are all greedy, so we always think, I need this, this is different, size, this is different fashion, this is different color, this is different look, I must have this. We end up buying all these things because of greed. And the second, the advertisement. We are allured by these advertisements by saying, oh, you need these shoes for doing your morning exercise or jogging. Oh, you need another pair of shoes for going to the bathroom. Oh, you need another pair of shoes for climbing the rock. I mean, we listen to all this and end up buying. I'm not trying to be cynical. There may be some element of truth there, but all I'm saying is make sure that you don't go beyond the limit. As Mahatma Gandhi says, that there is enough for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. That's not enough for everybody's greed, you see. And then the end result is, you've accumulated so many things in your tiny little room. Normally in big cities, it's a tiny little room, you see. And many of these things which you have paid a lot of money and which you have hoarded and accumulated, and you will find that many of these things you have not used for years. Still thinking one day I will use it, you see. And you are not able to part it away to those who are in need, who don't have even one pair of shoes to wear, you see. So it's really a question of checking oneself and see the usefulness of hoarding or accumulating and not giving. All right, we stop here. See you tomorrow. Thank you. May the Bodhichitta which we have not cultivated be cultivated. May the Bodhichitta which we have cultivated be further enhanced. So now when you go back and read this text, you are getting clear meaning. Is it clear? Make sure that after you finish this text, you get some sense that yes, I know a little bit about shikshasamuchaya. That's important. For that you need to do thinking, a little bit more thinking. Because this one looks not so difficult, As oneself and others dislike fear and suffering, what within you is so special that you protect yourself and not others. It looks good, simple and straightforward. But if you think carefully, it talks about development of compassion, it talks about development of bodhicitta, it talks about development of wisdom, you see. It talks about our equality, sameness. So many things are, it's a heavily loaded thing. So for that you need to do a little bit of reflection, thinking, meditation. Okay, thank you.